Hey everybody, just want to give you a brief message based on some of the things that we've experienced the last few weeks. Uh, we're in a place right now, a lot of people are, I'd hate to put us all in it together, but a lot of people that we've encountered lately are in a place to where they feel like things are drying up. And of course, when things dry up in our life, the first thing we think of is we panic, or you think, "What have I done wrong?" Or you start repenting of a lot of things that maybe you offended the Lord with, and because you've offended the Lord, your manna has ceased, or whatever. Your life has been cut off, or your life source. But that's not true. Right now, the Lord's kind of revealing to us basically what's going on with a lot of us in this dry season, or this time of us feeling like things are drying up. And some of it comes out of 1 Kings 17. If you can turn there, or you can read it when we get done. And it has a lot to do with Elijah. And Elijah gets a word from the Lord, to go to the brook of Cherith. And he's there for a while, and he gets fed by the ravens, and he's drinking from the brook. And the brook ends up drying up, and when it dries up, he's postured to get his next set of plans, which is from the Lord. And the Lord's voice comes to him, and he basically tells him to go to Zarephath, and he ends up meeting a widow, and he saves basically, her and the boy's life, which is amazing. We won't even get into that, but I don't know about you, but there's times in my life where things have dried up. I thought, man, I was doing the Lord's will, and I was there at like Cherith, the brook of Cherith, and I was doing His will, and all of a sudden it dried up. And I thought, my gosh, what have I done wrong? I think that I thought this was the Lord, and now I've probably missed God. And I was so wrapped up in thinking the way that I've been taught, or thinking the way the world would teach us, as through the foundation of failure and fear. And instead, when things are drying up, it looks in these scriptures as though it's actually God drying it up so that He can give us His next plans, or even speak to us one-on-one, so that we can not only have this encounter with God, but also get the next plan for our life and our destiny. And a lot of us right now feel like things are drying up, but really God's posturing you to speak to you personally for the next plans of your life. And there's something else even after this, in when Joshua and them crossed over the Jordan, and I'm just going to throw it out here, Joshua 5:1, you can read it, but Joshua and the children of Israel basically crossed over, and when they crossed over, the priests were carrying the ark. They put their feet in the water, and the water, dried up or rode back all the way to a city called Adam, which is, we won't even get into that one, but that's a representation of the curse being reversed. If we could just step into the river of God, a lot of things would basically be reversed off our life. But they step into this river, and the river dries up and folds back all the way to the city called Adam, and they cross over, of course. Well, when they cross over, they're encamping for a bit there before Jericho, and it says in Joshua 5, it basically says that the kings of the Amorites that were west of the Jordan, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that the Lord dried up the waters of the Jordan from before the children of Israel until we had crossed over, that their heart melted. Now that's strange. The enemy knew that when things dried up in the children of Israel's life, or when God dried up the waters, they're actually thinking, "Oh my gosh, here they come!" Where the children of Israel are about to take over because they got God with them. Now that's kind of strange, and what the Lord has kind of showed us is, when things are starting to dry up in our life, we don't see it this way. We don't see that maybe it's the Lord drying it up supernaturally, because some of these things that are drying up you couldn't do. is only by the power of God. And so the enemy's watching God move in our life and dry up things. And when they see God moving and drying up things in our life, the enemy's getting intimidated and their heart is melting. Why? Because they know we're fixing to step into our next level of authority and start taking over more land or start taking over more areas, not only in our own life, but maybe in areas of the earth, or taking on authority in a new job, or even becoming an entrepreneur, or a pastor. He maybe feel like he's losing the church, but it's drying up so that he can take over maybe a region, or start being a missionary. Who knows? But the enemy is intimidated when God starts drying these things up supernaturally in our life, because they know we're fixing to enter into our next place. And but what the enemy does to us now these days is make us start thinking how much we have failed. And if we can stay engrossed on ourselves and what we've done wrong, we'll never hear God, or even see that, or see where we're going, or know our next move in our next phase of life. And I don't know if you can read on with Joshua 5, but even after Joshua 5 and the enemy get intimidated, what happens is that the Lord basically circumcises them, and then they take over the Jericho basically by just marching around and not saying a word except shouting at the end of their commandments of the Lord, and the walls come down. I mean, what an upgrade did they get? That was incredible. And so there's some things that God is posturing us for that is much higher than we think. But if we keep thinking of how the enemy's throwing this mentality at us of thinking that we're a failure, and maybe we've disappointed God, or maybe I'm not on the right track, we'll never be able to hear or posture ourselves to hear the Lord and see where we're going. So if you're all dried up and you feel like things are drying up, hey, just sit for a moment and just put all those things aside and say, Lord, okay, what do you have for me? What do you want to do? I'm here, Lord. Because even after they crossed over, then Joshua was crossing over, and they get to the place before they get circumcised. Even Joshua, after the river had dried up and they crossed over, Joshua gets a visitation from the commander of the Lord. And some of us, God's drying things up, even in our own life, so that we can see Him or encounter Him face to face and have a real visitation from Him. So don't take these things dried up too seriously. It could be the Lord, and we're just postured the wrong way, sin it the wrong way. But if we can turn and repent God's way, maybe we'll hear something, and maybe we'll get back on track. So get your heads up. It's not as bad as you think. Blessings on you. Bye-bye.